Lieutenant Han Jae-ho yawned as his small patrol ship drifted through the quiet space near Earth's outer colony on Europa. 6 hours into his 8-hour shift, and nothing had happened. Just stars, silence, and the soft beeping of his ship's systems. "Control, this is Patrol 7. All clear in Sector 4, Jae-ho said into his comm unit. His voice echoed in the empty cockpit. "Copy that, Patrol 7. 2 more hours and you can come home," replied the tired voice from Control. Jae-ho stretched his arms above his head. He was about to reach for his coffee when all the lights on his control panel turned red at once. What the? A purple wave of energy hit his ship. The engines died. The lights went out. Even his backup systems failed. Jae-ho's heart raced as he tried switch after switch, but nothing worked. Through the front window, he saw it, a massive ship appearing out of nowhere. It was 3 times the size of Earth's largest vessel, with a strange shape like a giant sea creature. Its hull shimmered with a metal humans had never seen before. "Control. Unknown ship in Sector 4. I'm hit with some kind of energy pulse. Systems down." Jae-ho shouted into his comm, not knowing if his message would reach anyone. With his last functioning system, Jae-ho hit the emergency beacon. A small red light blinked once, twice, then went dark as his ship lost all power. The large ship moved closer. A beam of pale blue light shot out and wrapped around Jae-ho's small patrol craft. He felt his ship being pulled forward. "Not today," Jae-ho whispered. He reached under his seat for the manual override, but before he could pull it, a gas filled the cockpit. His eyes grew heavy. His muscles went limp. As darkness crept into the edges of his vision, his last thought was of his family back on Earth. Jae-ho woke up with a pounding headache. The surface beneath him was hard and cold. When he opened his eyes, a bright white light made him squint. He was lying on a metal table in a room with smooth walls that glowed slightly. This was not his ship. This was not a human room. He tried to sit up, but found his wrists and ankles held down by bands of light. They weren't solid, but they held him firmly in place. A door slid open without a sound. 3 tall figures walked in. Jae-ho's breath caught in his throat. They were not human. Their skin shimmered like oil on water. Each had 4 large eyes, 2 where human eyes would be, and 2 smaller ones at their temples. They had no visible nose, just small slits. Their mouths were small and didn't move when they spoke. "The specimen is conscious," said one, its voice oddly musical. The words appeared in Jae-ho's mind rather than reaching his ears. "Vital signs stable. Brain activity normal," said another, holding what looked like a clear tablet. The third figure stepped closer to Jae-ho. This one wore something like armor, with symbols Jae-ho couldn't read. "I am Commander Raoul of the Tuck Exploration Fleet," the figure said. "You have been selected for assessment." Jae-ho found his voice. "What does that mean? Why am I here?" "Your species has expanded beyond its home world. You have reached our monitoring boundary. Before we decide how to respond to humanity, we must understand what you are capable of." Jae-ho pulled against his restraints. "We're peaceful explorers. We don't want trouble." Commander Raoul's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "All species claim peace until they are strong enough for war. Our history has taught us caution." The commander turned to the others. "Begin the physical assessment. Standard protocols." As they approached with devices Jae-ho had never seen before, he kept his face calm while his mind raced. He needed to stay alert, to remember everything he saw. When he escaped, Earth would need this information. "Do not worry, human," said the one with the tablet. "I am Chief Researcher Du-Yan. If you are what you claim to be, a peaceful being, you have nothing to fear." But as the door closed behind Commander Raoul, Jae-ho saw something in the alien's eyes that told a different story. Whatever tests they had planned, they weren't looking for peace. They were looking for weakness. And Han Jae-ho decided right then that they wouldn't find any. Jai-Ho stood in a large empty room. The white walls seemed to go on forever. The floor beneath his feet was soft but firm. He wore a thin gray suit that the Tak had given him after taking his uniform. "Begin physical test 1, said a voice from nowhere. A door opened in the wall. Chief Researcher Du Yan entered with 2 other Tak. One of them was smaller than the others, with eyes that seemed less harsh. "Human," Du Yan said, "we will test your physical limits today. The data will help us understand your species." Jai-Ho crossed his arms. "And if I refuse? Then we will use methods that are less comfortable." Du Yan's 4 eyes blinked one after another. "Please cooperate. It will be better for you." Jai-Ho nodded slowly. He needed to stay strong and alert. Fighting now would waste energy he might need later. "First test, endurance," said Du Yan. The floor began to move under Jai-Ho's feet like a treadmill. He started walking, then running as it moved faster. Most species can maintain full speed for only brief periods, Du Yan explained to the smaller Tak. "Watch how quickly it tires." But Jai-Ho didn't tire quickly. He ran steadily, his breathing even. Earth's military training had prepared him well. When sweat began to drip down his face, the Tak leaned forward with interest. "Fascinating. It releases water to cool itself," said the smaller Tak, voice sounding young and curious. "Yes, Sunmai. An inefficient system, but effective," replied Du Yan. "Increase speed." The floor moved faster. Jai-Ho's legs burned, but he kept running. 1 hour passed, then 2. The Tak watched with growing surprise. "Enough," Du Yan finally said. The floor slowed to a stop. Jai-Ho bent over, hands on his knees, breathing hard but still standing. "Water," he gasped. Sunma stepped forward with a clear container, but Du Yan held up a hand. "Not yet. Strength test next." A metal bar appeared from the ceiling. Jai-Ho understood without being told. He jumped up, grabbed it, and began doing pull-ups. "The gravity here is 1.2 times its home world," Du Yan noted, "yet it adapts quickly." Jai-Ho did 30 pull-ups before his arms gave out. He dropped to the floor, muscles shaking. "Now water," Du Yan said. Sun Mei brought the container to Jai-Ho. He drank deeply, watching the Tak over the rim. They were talking quietly to each other, their 4 eyes blinking in patterns. "The recovery rate is remarkable," Sun Mai said. "Look at its vital signs." Jai-Ho's breathing was already returning to normal. He wiped sweat from his forehead and handed the empty container back to Sun Mei. "Thank you," he said. Sun Mei's eyes widened slightly at his words. "Final test for today," Du Yan announced. Pain response. Jai-Ho tensed. A small robot rolled toward him carrying what looked like a metal rod. "This will cause pain but no permanent damage," Du Yan explained. "We need to measure your threshold." Jai-Ho backed away. "I don't think so." 2 large Tak guards entered the room. Jai-Ho looked for an escape, but found none. The guards grabbed his arms. "Please remain still," Du Yan said. "Fighting will only make it worse." The robot touched the rod to Jai-Ho's arm. Pain shot through his body like lightning. He gritted his teeth but didn't scream. The Tak watched closely as numbers flashed on their tablets. When the rod pulled away, Jai-Ho sagged in the guard's grip. "Impressive control," Du Yan said. "Most species vocalize their distress immediately. Humans are full of surprises," Jai-Ho managed to say through clenched teeth. As the guards took him back to his cell, Jai-Ho noticed Sun Mai watching him with what almost looked like concern. When no one was looking, she slipped something under his water container, a small packet of what might be food. Back in his cell, Jai-Ho ate the extra ration quickly. He would need his strength. The tests would get harder, he was sure of it. But now he knew something important. Not all the Tak were the same. Sun Mai had shown him kindness, and where there was one crack in their united front, he might find others. 7 days had passed since Jai-Ho's capture. The physical tests had gotten harder each day. The talk had made him run until his legs gave out. They had tested how long he could hold his breath. They had even put him in a room so hot that the air burned his lungs. But Jai-Ho had not broken. The human continues to adapt, Du Yun said to Commander Rao. They stood outside Jai-Ho's cell, watching him through the clear wall. Each test makes it stronger. Then we must try a different approach, Commander Rao replied. Begin psychological testing. That night, the lights in Jai-Ho's cell stayed on. The next night too, and the next. The bright white light never dimmed. Jai-Ho covered his eyes with his arm, but sleep came in short, troubled bursts. On the fourth day without proper sleep, the talk took him to a new room. This one was pitch black. They left him there for hours, or was it days? Jai-Ho couldn't tell. In the darkness, he began to see things that weren't there. Flashes of light, shapes moving. He heard whispers. His mind was playing tricks on him. I will not break, Jai-Ho said aloud. His voice sounded strange in the empty room. I will not break. He began to recite poetry from school. Then he did math problems in his head. He remembered songs from his childhood. Anything to keep his mind sharp. When the talk finally came for him, Jai-Ho had made up a complete exercise routine. Even in the dark, he had stayed active. Interesting, Du Yun said when they found him doing push-ups. Most species collapse into despair when isolated. Humans are social, Jai-Ho said, standing up. But we can also be alone when we need to. The next test was worse. The talk put Jai-Ho in a room with screens on every wall. The screens showed images of Earth being destroyed, cities burning, oceans rising, people running in fear. This is happening now, Commander Rao's voice said from speakers in the ceiling. While you are here, your planet suffers. Jai-Ho's heart raced. Could it be true? No, it had to be a trick. You're lying, he said. Why would we lie? See for yourself. The screen showed more images, Jai-Ho's hometown in flames. But there was a mistake, a building in the wrong place. The talk had created fake images, but they didn't know Earth well enough to get it right. Jai-Ho laughed. The sound echoed in the room. What amuses you, human? Commander Rao asked. You got it wrong, Jai-Ho said. That's not my home. These images are fake. There was silence. Then the screens went dark. Back in his cell, Jai-Ho found Sun Mi waiting with his food tray. You surprised them today, she said quietly. No other species has seen through that test. Jai-Ho took the tray. Your commander doesn't understand humans very well. Sun Mi's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. He understands enough to fear you. That's why these tests continue. Fear us? Why? Sun Mi looked around to make sure no one was listening. Your kind is different. Most species give up when pushed too far. They accept their place. Humans push back. Jai-Ho considered her words. Is that why you're helping me? The extra food, the information. I am a researcher first. I want to understand. She paused. But I also believe we should not fear what we don't understand. We should learn from it. She moved toward the door but stopped. Tomorrow will be difficult. They will try to use your memories against you. How? We have technology that can see into your mind, your thoughts, your memories. Jai-Ho felt cold fear for the first time. His memories were private, personal. The thought of aliens looking through them was worse than any physical pain. Thank you for warning me, he said. After Sun Mi left, Jai-Ho sat on his bed and closed his eyes. If they wanted his memories, he would give them memories, but not the ones they wanted. He began to organize his thoughts, bringing forward memories of human strength, of people surviving disasters, of history books showing how humans had faced war, disease, and hardship, and still continued forward. Jai-Ho smiled in the quiet cell. The talk thought they would break him by looking into his mind. Instead, He would show them exactly why humans never yield. Jai-Ho sat in a chair in the center of a round room, a metal band wrapped around his head. It was cold against his skin. "This won't hurt," Du-Yun said, adjusting some controls on a panel. "But you will feel strange." Behind a glass wall, Commander Ral watched with his 4 eyes narrowed. Next to him stood Sun Mai, her face carefully blank. "Begin the scan," Ral ordered. Du-Yun pressed a button. The band around Jai-Ho's head hummed. Ji-Ho felt a tingling sensation, like tiny ants crawling across his brain. "Relax your mind," Du-Yun instructed. "Don't fight it." Jai-Ho did the opposite. He focused hard on specific memories. Earth history, human survival stories, the lessons from his military training about resisting enemy interrogation. On a large screen, his thoughts appeared as colorful patterns. The Tak watched with wide eyes. "Remarkable complexity," Du-Yun muttered. "So many layers." "Find its weaknesses," Commander Ral demanded. "Find what it fears." Du-Yun adjusted the controls. The machine hummed louder. Ji-Ho winced, but kept focusing. Suddenly, personal memories broke through. His mother teaching him to ride a bike. His father's proud face at his graduation. The small apartment in Seoul where he grew up. His sister's wedding last summer. "There," said Ral. "Family bonds. Use those." The machine pulsed. Ji-Ho felt pressure in his head as the Tak tried to push deeper into his memories. They were looking for pain, for loss, for fear. Jai-Ho let them see a memory of his grandfather's death, the sadness he had felt, the tears at the funeral. "Emotional response is strong," Du-Yun noted, "but different from other species. The sadness doesn't weaken it. It seems to strengthen it somehow." On the screen, Jai-Ho's memory shifted to his grandfather telling stories about the old days, about hard times Korea had faced, about people who had survived wars and hardship. "What is happening?" Ral asked. "Why is it showing us these things?" "I'm not controlling this," Du-Yun replied. "The human is guiding the scan." Jai-Ho's mind filled with more memories. Books he had read about human explorers, movies about people overcoming impossible odds, history lessons about civilizations that rose from ashes. "Shut it down," Ral ordered. Du-Yun turned off the machine. The band around Jai-Ho's head stopped humming. He took a deep breath as the pressure in his mind eased. "That was unexpected," Du-Yun said, removing the band. "No species has ever directed a neural scan before." Jai-Ho rubbed his temples. "Maybe you don't understand humans as well as you think." Later, in his cell, Jai-Ho lay on his bed staring at the ceiling. His head still ached from the scan. The door opened, and Sun Mai entered with a tray of food. "You surprised them again today," she said quietly. "Good," Jai-Ho replied, sitting up. Sun Mai hesitated, then sat on the edge of his bed. "The others are confused by you, by humans." She paused. "I am too." "What confuses you?" "When we see sadness in your memories, you don't collapse. When we show you pain, you grow stronger. How is this possible?" Jai-Ho considered her question. "Have you ever heard of Earth's history?" Sun Mai shook her head. "Humans have faced many disasters," Jai-Ho began. "Wars, plagues, natural disasters. Each time, we rebuild, we learn, we go on. But why? Other species accept defeat. They surrender to stronger forces. Because we hope," Jai-Ho said simply. "We believe tomorrow might be better than today. And if not tomorrow, then the day after." Sun Mai's 4 eyes blinked slowly. "Hope is not logical when facing superior power." Jai-Ho smiled. "Humans aren't always logical. That's our strength." Sun Mai stood up suddenly. "The High Council is meeting tomorrow. They will decide what to do about Earth based on these tests." She lowered her voice. "Commander Ral wants to recommend containment of your species. Maybe worse." Jai-Ho's smile faded. "How many ships do you have near Earth?" A full stealth fleet. Your people don't even know we exist yet. Sun Mi moved toward the door. I must go. Wait, Jaiho called. Why are you telling me this? Sun Mi paused at the door. Because after seeing your memories, I believe there might be another way. Better than fear. Better than war. After she left, Jiho paced his cell. The Tak were planning something dangerous for Earth. He needed to warn his people. But how? He looked around his cell with new purpose. There had to be a way out. There had to be a way to send a message. Humans always found a way. And Jaiho would not be the first to fail. The Tak High Council chamber was a large round room, with 7 tall chairs arranged in a circle. Soft blue light came from the walls. The air smelled like something sweet that Jaiho couldn't name. Jaiho stood in the center of the circle, guards on either side of him. He wore his gray prisoner suit, now worn and dirty after weeks of tests. He stood straight and kept his face calm, even though his heart beat fast. 7 Tak leaders sat in the high chairs. Their skin shimmered more brightly than the others Jaiho had seen. They wore complex robes with symbols he didn't understand. Commander Ral stood at a small platform, speaking to the council. This human has shown us enough, Ral said, pointing at Jaiho. Their kind is dangerous. They do not accept natural limits. They do not know their place in the order of things. The head counselor, with skin that shifted between blue and green, leaned forward. Explain your evidence, Commander. The human body strengthens under stress instead of weakening. The human mind grows more determined when challenged, not less. They are unpredictable. They resist control. Ral showed images from Jaiho's tests on a floating screen. Most concerning, they can even resist our neural scanning technology. No species has ever done this before. The council members murmured to each other. And what do you suggest we do? Asked the head counselor. Containment at minimum, Ral replied. Limit them to their solar system. Destroy their deep space technology. Jaiho tensed at these words. Or better yet, Ral continued, a preemptive measure. Our stealth fleet is already in position. One of the council members spoke up. Destroy a species before they threaten us. That goes against our most basic principles. I agree, said another. Containment would be enough. Du Yun stepped forward. If I may speak, counselors. The head counselor nodded. I have studied this human closely, Du Yun said. Yes, humans are different from other species we have encountered, but different does not mean dangerous. Explain, said the head counselor. Their adaptability could make them valuable allies, not just threats. Their creativity solves problems in ways we might not consider. Ral made a sharp noise. Naive thinking. Their history is full of war and destruction. You've seen it in the humans' memories. Yes, Du Yan agreed. But I also seen how they learn from mistakes, how they try to be better. Jaiho listened carefully. Du Yan was defending humans. This was unexpected. The council continued to debate. Jiho wished he could speak, but no one asked for his input. He was just a specimen to most of them. What Jaiho didn't know was that in a nearby room, Sun Mi was doing something dangerous. She had accessed the ship's communication system during the council meeting when security was focused elsewhere. Using what she had learned from studying Earth broadcasts, she was creating a pathway for Jaiho to use later. A small gap in the ship's security that only she, and soon Jaiho, would know about. Back in the council chamber, the debate grew heated. We must vote, the head counselor finally said. Does the human stay in containment for further study, or do we take action against Earth? The voting was done silently through the Tak's mental network. Jiho watched their faces, trying to guess what they were deciding. Finally, the head counselor spoke. The council has decided. The human will remain for additional study. We will continue to observe Earth without interference for now. Rel's 4 eyes blinked rapidly in anger. A mistake, counselors. Every day we wait, they grow stronger. The decision is made. the head counselor said firmly. Return the human to its cell. As the guards led Jai-Ho away, he caught Du Yan's eye. The scientist gave him a small nod. Did that mean the vote had gone in Earth's favor? Ji-Ho wasn't sure. Back in his cell, Ji-Ho found something new under his thin mattress, a small device like a metal disc. When he touched it, words appeared in the air above it. System update tomorrow. Security offline briefly. Be ready. Ji-Ho quickly hid the disc again. His heart pounded with hope and fear. Was this from Sun Ma? Was it a trap? Either way, tomorrow would change everything. Ji-Ho lay on his bed and began to plan. Ji-Ho lay on his bed, counting seconds in his head. His body was still, but his mind raced. According to the message, the system update would begin soon. The lights in his cell flickered once, twice, then dimmed slightly. That was the signal. Ji-Ho moved quickly. He pulled the small metal disc from under his mattress and pressed it against the cell door where Sun Ma had marked with a tiny scratch. The disc stuck to the surface and glowed blue. The clear cell door slid open without a sound. Ji-Ho peeked into the hallway. Empty. He stepped out, his heart pounding in his chest. Which way? He remembered the path they always took to the testing rooms. Right would lead deeper into the ship. Left would go toward the outer sections. He turned left. Ji-Ho moved quickly but quietly, pressing himself against the wall at each corner before looking. The ship felt different with the systems updating. The usual soft hum was gone. The lights were dimmer. No Tak were in sight. He found a small room with what looked like control panels. Inside, he spotted something familiar. Communication equipment. It wasn't exactly like Earth technology, but similar enough that he recognized it. Ji-Ho slipped inside and closed the door. He examined the panels, trying to remember what Sun Ma had taught him about talk writing during their quiet talks. This symbol means connect, he whispered to himself. This one means broadcast. He pressed several buttons. The screen lit up, showing strange symbols. Ji-Ho took a deep breath and began entering what he hoped was Earth's coordinates. Suddenly, an alarm blared through the ship. The lights returned to full brightness. The system update had finished early. No, Ji-Ho muttered, working faster. He had to send a message. Even a simple warning would be enough. The door behind him slid open. 2 Tak guards stood there, their eyes wide with surprise. Stop, one shouted, reaching for a weapon. Ji-Ho didn't stop. He pressed the final symbol and spoke quickly into what he hoped was a microphone. Earth Defense, this is Lieutenant Han Ji-Ho. Alien species called Tak has stealth fleet near Saturn. Hostile intentions. Prepare. The guard fired his weapon. A blast of energy hit the panel next to Ji-Ho's hand, sending sparks flying. The second guard rushed forward. Ji-Ho spun around, using a move from his combat training. He didn't attack the guard directly. Tak were stronger than humans. Instead, he ducked under the guard's arm and used the alien's own momentum to push him into the other guard. The Tak stumbled, confused by this unexpected tactic. They were used to species that either fought directly or surrendered. Ji-Ho did neither. He slipped past them into the hallway, but more guards were coming. 4 of them blocked the corridor ahead. Ji-Ho looked around desperately. There, an open maintenance shaft in the wall. He dove for it, squeezing his body into the narrow space just as energy blasts hit the wall behind him. The shaft was tight, but Ji-Ho pushed forward, ignoring the scrapes on his arms and legs. He could hear the guards behind him, their bigger bodies struggling to follow. The shaft opened into a larger room filled with humming machinery. Ji-Ho dropped down, landing hard on the metal floor. His ankle twisted painfully, but he forced himself to stand. There it is. Commander Raoul stood at the entrance with 6 guards. His 4 eyes blazed with anger. Remarkable, Raoul said, walking closer. No species has ever escaped containment before. Humans are full of firsts, Ji-Ho replied, backing away. His eyes darted around, looking for another exit. "Your message failed," Ral said. "It was blocked before it could transmit." Jai-Ho's heart sank. Had all this been for nothing? The guards moved forward, surrounding him. Ji-Ho raised his fists, ready to fight even though he knew he couldn't win. Suddenly, the guards stopped. Ral turned as Du-Yan rushed into the room. "Commander, we have a problem," Du-Yan said urgently. The human's message. Part of it got through. Ral's skin changed color with rage. Impossible. A data packet reached the Earth colony on Europa. Du-Yan continued. "Their sensors are now scanning for our fleet." Jai-Ho couldn't help smiling despite the pain in his ankle. "Told you. Humans are full of surprises." The guards grabbed Ji-Ho roughly. One struck him hard across the face. Blood trickled from his split lip. "Take it back to the cell," Ral ordered. "Maximum security. No visitors." As they dragged him away, Jai-Ho caught Du-Yan's eye. The scientist looked worried, but also impressed. Jai-Ho had failed to escape, but he had succeeded in something more important. Earth now knew it wasn't alone. And humans, when warned of danger, were at their most dangerous. Jai-Ho sat in his new cell, which was smaller and darker than the first one. His face was bruised. His ankle throbbed with pain. The guards had not been gentle after his escape attempt. But despite his injuries, Jai-Ho felt something he hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Part of his message had reached Earth. His people now knew about the talk. The cell door slid open. Ji-Ho expected guards, but it was Sun Mai who entered, carrying a small medical kit. "You shouldn't be here," Jai-Ho said. "Ral ordered no visitors. Du-Yan sent me to treat your injuries," Sun Mai replied, kneeling beside him. "Even test subjects need to be healthy." She began cleaning the cuts on his face with a cool gel. Her touch was gentle. "Did my message really get through?" Jai-Ho asked quietly. Sun Li nodded. "Only part of it. Enough to alert your people that something is out there." She lowered her voice. "The fleet has been ordered to pull back beyond your system's detection range." Jai-Ho closed his eyes briefly in relief. "Thank you for helping me. I may have made a terrible mistake," Sun Mai said, her 4 eyes blinking rapidly. "If this leads to conflict between our species." "It doesn't have to," Jai-Ho insisted. "Humans don't want war. We just want to protect ourselves." Sun Li applied the gel to a deep cut on Jai-Ho's arm. "Commander Ral doesn't see it that way. He's convinced that all expanding species eventually become conquerors." "Why does he believe that?" Sun Mai was quiet for a moment. Then she sat back on her heels. "Because that's what happened to us." She told Jai-Ho about the talk history. Centuries ago, another species called the Vorn had nearly destroyed the talk. The Vorn had seemed peaceful at first, trading and sharing technology. Then suddenly, they attacked, trying to take the talk's resource-rich planets. The talk barely survived. "Since then, we've been careful," Sun Mai explained. "We study other species from a distance. We test captured specimens to understand their nature. We contain those who might threaten us." "But that doesn't mean all species are the same," Jai-Ho argued. "Humans have our problems, yes, but we learn from mistakes. We try to be better." A noise in the corridor made Sun Mi stand quickly. "I must go." "Wait," Jai-Ho said. "What's happening now? What will they do to Earth?" "The High Council is divided," Sun Mi told him. "Some want immediate action. Others, like Du-Yan, are arguing for caution." She moved to the door. "Your warning to Earth has changed everything. Now we wait to see how your people respond." After Sun Mi left, Ji-Ho paced his small cell despite his painful ankle. What would Earth do with his partial warning? Would they prepare for attack? Send out ships to investigate? Try to communicate? Hours later, the ship suddenly shook. Alarms blared throughout the corridors. Ji-Ho pressed his ear to the cell door, trying to hear what was happening. The door slid open unexpectedly. Du-Yan stood there, his skin changing colors with excitement or fear. Come quickly, he said. The council wants to see you. What's happening? Jai-Ho asked as Du-Yun led him down the corridor. Your people responded, Du-Yun explained, but not as expected. In the council chamber, the 7 talk leaders watched a large screen. Jai-Ho gasped when he saw what it showed. 2 ships were approaching the talk vessel. One was clearly military, bristling with weapons, but the second ship was different. It had no visible weapons. Its design was smooth and open, with large viewing windows and bright lights. What is this? The head counselor asked Jai-Ho directly. It was the first time any of them had spoken to him as a person, not a specimen. The armed ship is for defense, Jai-Ho explained, hope rising in his chest. The other one is diplomatic. My people want to talk. Commander Raoul made an angry noise. A trick. They detected our technology, and now seek to gain our knowledge before attacking. If they wanted to attack, Jai-Ho countered, they would have sent only warships. The diplomatic vessel shows their true intention. The council members looked at each other. We must decide quickly, the head counselor said. Do we engage or retreat? Jai-Ho stepped forward, ignoring the guards who moved to stop him. Let me talk to them. Let me prove humans can be allies, not enemies. The council chamber fell silent as they considered his words. The council chamber was silent as the talk leaders considered Jai-Ho's request to speak with the Earth ships. This is foolish, Commander Raoul finally said. The human will only help its own kind. Perhaps, the head counselor replied. But we have studied this human for weeks. We have seen inside its mind. If any human can speak honestly to both sides, it is this one. After more debate, the council made their decision. Lieutenant Han Jai-Ho, the head counselor, announced, You may speak to your people, but Commander Raoul will monitor all communication. If we detect deception, contact will end immediately. Jai-Ho nodded. I understand. Thank you. They took him to the bridge of the talk ship. It was a large room with curved walls and floating screens showing stars and the approaching Earth vessels. TAC officers worked at stations shaped like half-moons. Jai-Ho stood before a communication panel. His heart beat fast. After weeks of captivity, he would finally speak to humans again. Open the channel, Commander Raoul ordered. A screen lit up. A woman in an Earth Defense Force uniform appeared. Her eyes widened when she saw Jai-Ho. Lieutenant Han, you're alive, she exclaimed. We received your partial distress call and came as soon as possible. Captain Davis, Jai-Ho said, recognizing his superior officer. Yes, I'm alive. The situation is complicated. Are you being coerced? Captain Davis asked, her eyes narrowing. No, Jai-Ho replied honestly. I'm here of my own will. I've been held for study by a species called the talk. They've treated me roughly at times, but they've been trying to understand humans. Jai-Ho explained the situation as clearly as he could. He told Captain Davis about the talk's fear of expanding species, their history with the Vorn, and their debate about how to handle humanity. They could have attacked Earth at any time, Jai-Ho concluded, but they chose to study us first. I believe there's a chance for peaceful contact. Captain Davis listened carefully. The diplomatic vessel is ready to begin formal communication. But first, are you all right, Lieutenant? Do you need extraction? Jai-Ho glanced at Commander Raoul, who was watching with all 4 eyes focused intently. I'm okay, Jai-Ho said. In fact, I think I should stay as an intermediary, at least for now. Captain Davis nodded. Understood. We'll proceed with diplomatic protocols. She paused. Lieutenant, your warning saved lives. Earth Command wants you to know that. The screen split to show a second face, a woman in civilian clothes with diplomatic insignia. I'm Ambassador Kim from the Earth Diplomatic Corps, she said. We come with an offer for the talk leadership. Commander Raoul stepped forward. What offer could you possibly make that would interest us? Ambassador Kim smiled. knowledge exchange, cultural understanding, mutual benefit rather than conflict. Pretty words, Ral said dismissively. All species say such things before they show their true nature. Then let me be more specific, Ambassador Kim replied. Humanity has learned from its own bloody history. We fought ourselves nearly to extinction multiple times. We've polluted our world, exploited our resources, and made countless mistakes. The TOC Council members looked at each other in surprise at this frank admission. But the ambassador continued, we've also learned. Each time we've pulled back from the brink, we've developed technologies to clean our world. We've created systems to resolve conflicts peacefully. She leaned forward. We don't claim to be perfect, but we know that cooperation yields far greater benefits than conquest. We can share this knowledge with you, as you can share yours with us. Jai-Ho watched the TOC leaders carefully. Some looked skeptical, others curious. The head counselor's skin shifted through thoughtful patterns of color. Commander Rao believes this is a trick, Jai-Ho said, taking a risk. And I understand his caution. The TOC have been hurt before. But I've seen inside their culture too. They value knowledge and understanding above all else. This exchange would benefit both our peoples. A long silence followed. Then the head counselor spoke. We wish to speak privately, he said. The communication will resume in 1 hour. As the screen went dark, Jai-Ho turned to face the TOC leaders. Had he said enough? Had Earth's unexpected response made a difference? Only time would tell. But for the first time, Jai-Ho felt real hope for a peaceful outcome. 3 days had passed since the first contact between Earth and the TOC. The diplomatic ship now docked with the TOC vessel. Small teams of humans and TOC met in carefully arranged rooms to begin the complex work of communication between two very different civilizations. Jai-Ho stood in an observation room, looking out at the stars. His prison clothes were gone. He now wore a clean Earth defense uniform brought by the diplomatic team. His cuts and bruises were healing. His body felt stronger with each passing day. The door slid open, and Sun Mai entered. She looked different now, more confident, wearing the markings of a senior researcher instead of an assistant. The council has promoted Du Yan to head of interspecies relations, she said, and I am now lead researcher on human cultural studies. Jai-Ho smiled. Congratulations. You deserve it. It would not have happened without you. Sun Mai came to stand beside him at the window. The council overruled Commander Rao. We will attempt peaceful exchange with humans. And Rao. He has been assigned to border patrol, far from Earth. Sun Mai's 4 eyes blinked in what Jai-Ho now recognized as amusement. The council felt his talents were better used elsewhere. Jai-Ho laughed. It felt good to laugh again. Will you return to Earth now? Sun Mai asked. Soon, Jai-Ho replied. But first, I've been asked to help establish the initial protocols for our species interaction. After everything that's happened, the council trusts me to be fair to both sides. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars. The Earth ships floated nearby, their lights blinking in the darkness. There is something I still don't understand about humans, Sun Mai said after a while. Something that none of our tests revealed. What's that? Why do you continue? Why push forward when the odds are against you? She turned to face him. We tried to break you. We used physical pain, mental stress, isolation. Nothing worked. You grew stronger, more determined. Jai-Ho thought carefully about her question. How could he explain something so fundamental to being human? When I was young, my grandfather told me a story, he began. A farmer found a cocoon with a small opening. A butterfly was trying to come out, but the hole was too small. The farmer, trying to help, cut the cocoon to make the opening bigger. The butterfly came out easily, but its body was swollen and its wings were small and shriveled. Sun Mai listened intently. The farmer didn't understand that the butterfly needed to struggle through the small opening. The fight to push through forces fluid from the butterfly's body into its wings. Without that struggle, the butterfly can never fly. Jai-Ho touched the window, tracing the outline of distant Earth. Humans are like that butterfly. We need the struggle. It makes us stronger. It helps us grow. But what drives you to continue when the struggle seems impossible? Sunmai pressed. Jaiho smiled. Hope. Curiosity. The belief that tomorrow might be better than today. The desire to see what's beyond the next horizon. He turned to face her. It's not just about survival. Many species survive. Humans want to do more than exist. We want to live, to discover, to create. Sunmai was quiet for a long moment. I believe I'm beginning to understand. Your strength isn't in your muscles or your technology. It's here. She touched her chest, where a human heart would be. The door opened again, and Du Yun entered with several human scientists. Their faces showed excitement and curiosity rather than fear. Lieutenant Han, Du Yun said formally, the first joint research team is ready to begin work. Would you do us the honor of officiating the ceremony? Jaiho nodded. As he followed Du Yun out, Sunmai walked beside him. What will you tell other humans about us? She asked quietly. About what we did to you. Jaiho considered her question. The truth, that you tried to break a human, and learned why our kind never yields. And what is that reason? Sunmai asked. Jaiho smiled. Because every challenge makes us stronger, every obstacle teaches us something new, and every ending is just the beginning of a new story. As they entered the room where humans and Tak waited to begin their work together, Jaiho knew this was indeed not an ending, but a beginning, for both species and for the galaxy they shared.